Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. Today's episode is a little different. Most of the time on Born for the Stories, you hear from moms. You hear the emotional side, the research rabbit holes, the advocating, the late nights wondering if you are making the right decision for your child. But today, we want to talk about something that does not get discussed nearly enough in the medical parenting world, the dad perspective. Because when your child is facing surgeries, diagnoses, or complicated medical decisions, mothers and fathers often experience that journey very differently. And sometimes those differences can feel confusing. One parent might be deep in research and emotion, while the other seems calm, quiet, or focused on solving the problem. So today, I'm turning the microphone on Peter. We're going to talk about what it actually felt like for him when we first learned about Silas's condition, how dads process these situations differently, the pressure fathers carry during medical journeys, and what he would want other dads to know walking through this. Because the truth is, medical parenting doesn't just change mothers, it changes fathers too. Let's start at the beginning. When we first learned about Silas's diagnosis, what do you remember thinking?
Well, I think I'll step back even further is when he was first born. I mean, the moment he came out, and I've said it on other shows, is like, that was like the first thing that caught my eye. And it kind of, I remember thinking that took away from the enjoyment of just having a newborn a little bit, because I knew there was something going on from the moment he came out and showed us his face. And I remember taking him in and holding him in our room, and I tried to just put that out of my head. I was like, you know what? He's healthy. He's crying. He's here. But this is just not the time to worry about anything else right now.
Yeah, very logical.
I try. Well,
even in such like
also in the background though, I had heard, things about you, and I was worried about you. And that was always, I think, probably something that every father fears, is like, my worst fear was something happening to you, or obviously the baby. Yeah. So I was mostly just like, okay, we just need to get through this part first, and whatever's going on isn't a big enough deal to like cause anybody to not survive or anything like that. So I just tried to focus on holding him and getting to know him and experiencing that. And then we were just exhausted. So it was about taking a nap, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But to go back to like, when we finally understood the diagnosis, because we had ideas that it was hypospadias. We had ideas what it was. I think it confirmed what we thought, but the way we got the diagnosis, it was more extreme than we thought. So I just tried to think through what is this going to look like, and is there any way to avoid what we have coming?
Right.
I know you felt the same way, and I know that we discussed whether we wanted to do anything or not for a long time. It felt like a long time. I know it wasn't actually that long. I think a few weeks or so, we knew we had to do something.
Yeah. I definitely remember like during that time, especially the day that he was born, I remember feeling like my world had stopped, and we realized something was definitely going on, but you still seem very steady inside that space. Do you feel like you fully understood the severity of his and I don't even want to say the severity, but like, do you feel like you understood right away? Because he has had a severe case.
No, I was constantly learning really all the way through the whole procedure. And maybe that's why I seemed more calm and steady, was because I was kind of I think, I don't know if this is a general guy thing or just how I am, but I just was taking it as the information came, rather than trying to control something that I knew I couldn't control. And like I said, when he first came out, I knew there was nothing we could do then. And I tried to put it out of my head and just focus on making sure you two were healthy and breathing, basically.
Yeah.
And then when we found out the diagnosis, we found out from the one urologist that, it was one surgery and it was not that much more serious than a circumcision. And although we didn't really believe him, even on that at that moment, I still wasn't thinking about the whole situation in totality, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I can get that. And I do enjoy this conversation that we're currently having because we do hear a lot from the mom perspective of being like the care providers. And I do think that, like, I don't think I know from our situation, like, my brain works very differently than your brain, and it has throughout this whole entire process. So I think it is important to highlight that so partners can get on the same page as they go through that. Do you remember any part, like either in the beginning as we were going through this process, like, were you scared? Did you like, were you not? You just were like, I went into straight like problem solving mode. Like, where were you at with all that?
No, I was definitely scared, but I was scared for him. Nobody wants to have a child that you feel like is going to struggle in life with any aspect. You want a child that's going to succeed in every aspect of his life. And although this is private and it would only affect so many people and himself or whatever, I know it can still affect confidence. So I was more worried about his mental well-being, knowing this was going on, and how could we correct it, and what would that mental load be on him throughout life.
Yeah.
And then also another thing is we knew we had one or two issues. I was afraid, was there anything mental or cognitively going on
Yeah.
with him? Was there any other problems that would make this seem like nothing? Because that's a really scary, scary situation. So that's what I was really worried about.
Well, and that's a really hard space to sit in. And we see that, and I empathize with all of the guests that we've had on, because with a lot of these conditions, there seems to be multiple things that can occur. And when you're sitting inside that space, especially when they're so young and they're brand new and they're not talking and doing their milestones yet, you're just living in this limbo space of like, okay, I know the immediate issue, but there could be something else that we don't know yet because this baby can't communicate.
Right.
And that's a lot of weight to hold. And obviously, your mind spirals, and it's hard not to go to those dark thoughts and places of making it worst case scenario. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that what we knew was everything. So we had here's the list of things we need to overcome, and then we could go into fixing it. But I felt like we were still in the discovery stage for a while.
For sure.
And then we started talking to doctors, and more of them were saying, there's not typically other mental or cognitive things that go along with this condition. There's not too many other. There's sometimes some other midline things that happen, but I felt like tongue ties and lip ties or gum ties or whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called. Buccal ties, whatever. Those were all things that we could overcome. But I was very relieved that there was nothing that was typically going on simultaneously with his mind.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that's not the case for everyone, but that was the scenario for us. What was going through your mind that you didn't say out loud at any of the times? Do you remember anything that you were just like thinking consistently, but you just didn't let out? Because I think that's helpful, because I'm sure other dads are thinking the same thing.
I don't remember specifically holding anything in from you. I think you and I talked about everything from every direction and every angle that we could. There wasn't, I think the only thing that I held in was from everybody else. I mean, I spoke with select family members and I spoke with you. Outside of that though, I didn't talk to anybody. I don't know if I would say that was a good thing or a bad thing. For me, it was just the way that I handled it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that there was anything that I was holding. And I think there were times when I knew that there were times when I could talk to you about certain things, and some other times where I was like, I'm just going to keep that to myself right now because I don't want to upset you more, because I had this thought, because your mind can go in wild directions when you really don't have answers, but something's wrong with your child.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's just natural.
Yeah. So I would try not to speculate on things, because that didn't do anybody any good.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely understand and respect that. And, I don't think it goes to say this as a surprise, because it's not, but obviously a lot of couples analyze things differently, especially moms being more emotional with these type of scenarios. And I think dads just kind of go in like processing mode. For me, it was definitely very emotional, instinctual, like the type of feelings I was feeling, and I wanted to fix it and I wanted to know all the information and all of that. But you approached it, I feel like, more logically, I guess we can say. Do you think dads feel pressure to stay calm, like to be the calm space in these scenarios?
I mean, I think some might, but I don't think I was trying to give off a certain persona. I was just
Mm.
handling it in the only way I knew how. And I always tell you the only way to fix things is to worry about it. And obviously I'm
He
always
says that
joking
jokingly.
about that,
Yeah.
but that's just I can't change it. I
Mhm.
couldn't change it. And I could recognize that and understand that. Then it was just all about making the right decisions for us with the information we had. And
Mhm.
that's all I could focus on.
Yeah, I do feel like you were definitely like the anchor of the family though, because especially being postpartum and just coming out of obviously pregnancy and labor and delivery, I mean, my mind was all over the place. My hormones all over the place. Like this was a very, very emotionally fueled time for me. And I do just feel like through the process, you were more of like, you held it together. You were more calm and steady. And when I was spiraling, you at least were not spiraling with me, which
Well,
was helpful.
I think that's a difference between mothers, especially when you had just given birth. I mean, the way I looked at it was that you and Silas were still one. Like you guys were still
Mm-hmm.
connected. And not that I felt like an outsider or anything extreme like that, but I think a father naturally is a little bit more disconnected. And I grew a bond over time with our kids that, you have a bond immediately, but I don't think it's the same bond that you have where you just grew this child inside of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's a little different. So I think
For sure.
I came at it from a different angle, just because of my position than
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely carry things differently because it is a different scenario between the two of us. And I just think that's something that I don't think we talk about enough is the pressure that fathers or the dads feel or partners in general during these journeys. At any point did you feel like it was your responsibility to be fixing this situation? I mean, it's kind of like a silly question because like obviously I know you couldn't like do the surgeries, but like as the dad, like did you feel like you needed to fix something?
I mean, I felt like I needed to play a huge role and make sure that the decisions that we were making were the absolute best, no matter what, for him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the other side of things, I felt a little helpless because, as we've talked about it multiple times, we come from more holistic families and holistic mindsets. I knew there was nothing that we could do to. This isn't a gut problem where we can change diets and we can eat in a certain manner.
Right.
There was nothing we could do, and I just knew that, and I think I almost found a peace in that, like a bit of peace in that thought. Is that okay? So now I can't do anything. Now we need to just find the very best people who can do something for him.
Mm.
And I felt like I think I had, looking back on it, it feels like it, that I had a calmness and understanding that we would find that, and we had the resources to do whatever we needed to do for him, which I was very thankful for.
Yeah, that's a very powerful way that you put that. I guess I've never thought about that before. Is like with all the knowledge and access we have to holistic health and the choices that we make and the tools that we have, you're right. That was something that we couldn't tag team any of those things in to fix this diagnosis. I mean, we obviously used it later, and our listeners know we used it later for pre and post op support. But yeah, we couldn't do anything about it. And I never had the perspective of like it brings a little bit of, peace to mind of knowing that like there's nothing we can do besides pick the best team.
Right.
Yeah, I like that perspective. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. Did you worry, or how much did you worry about things like finances, the actual surgeries, because we had 3, and the overall outcomes of those 3 surgeries? And I have like a memory in my mind around like the financial situation that I am very thankful that you were like the anchor in our family and more calm, cool, and collected, because I was not, and I definitely wasn't at that time able to bring peace to that situation.
As far as the finances go, I knew we had our insurance, and although there was a lot of gray areas, we didn't know what would be covered. I don't think I worried that much about finances because I felt like we needed to. That was not as important as finding the right team, and I would have gone into any amount of debt needed to get him the best care that we could have. And I had that mindset immediately when I knew what we were
Yeah.
doing. I was just like, okay, we're gonna figure it out, if no matter what.
Yeah.
And then, did I worry about the surgeries? Yeah, yeah. That was the hardest part, was as a man thinking about what the doctors were explaining about what they were going to do to him seemed just brutal and difficult to understand. And you think of it about how you would feel, almost as if they're going to do it to him with no medications, no anesthesia, no nothing,
Right.
and that you're going to feel every ounce of pain. And I don't know. I don't remember seeing him in a whole lot of pain. I almost feel like I felt more of his pain than he felt. And I know that's extreme to say and probably a bit sarcastic, but I, especially for the second surgery, I had just the most brutal mental images of what was going to happen. It ended up not even being as bad as I was thinking.
Right.
It wasn't as extreme looking and all that as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But I was dreading that second surgery.
It's one
I
of
dreaded all of them, but that one was specifically the one that I was like,
to me, it's one of those scenarios too that you really never can fully grasp what you're about to go through and understand all of the in and outs of it until you're actually living it, which is, I hope, like by sharing our story and other people sharing their story, that's something that we can bring a little bit of peace to newer families walking these diagnoses. Because, you know, I think a great comparison is like, which you'll never understand either, is labor and delivery. Like all my friends could have told me that already had babies, like what it was going to be like to deliver a baby. And I had this like thought in my head, but until I actually went through it, I could never rationalize what that actually physically felt like until I actually lived it. And now I'm like, oh, okay, it's really hard to put into words. Totally understand now. And with that being on the flip side, like going through these 3 different procedures, the surgeons did an amazing job at educating us of like what's going to happen at each and every step. But until we were actually there and living it, nowhere could I have like totally understood, you know, the wound care, what the wound was going to look like, the outcome of that, and for the upcoming weeks. And so, yeah, it's hard to hear these descriptions and have this thing that you make up in your mind and kind of marry it to what reality in real life is.
I mean, that's a common thing with kids if you think about it. Like I couldn't have imagined what childbirth was going to be like, and I didn't even have the child.
Yeah.
And then everyone who doesn't have a kid yet will tell you, oh, when we have a kid, we're going to live the same life. It's going to be the same. And having a kid's not that hard. No, everything is a little bit more intense, and you can't quite understand it until you go through it with a child. And that's having the baby, raising the child at every different age.
Yeah.
And then if you do have a child that has to go undergo some surgeries or has some complications, then you really don't get it unless you're living it to understand how it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I glad that you had mentioned the perspective of like just thinking about these, because I know you analyze like the procedures and the outcomes to an extent differently than I ever could, because I don't have the same anatomy as you guys have. And it is hard enough being the mom, trying to like visualize and think about the, you know, the wounds and then the aftermath, and then what was going to look like on the end of it. And so I can only imagine what that's like from the male perspective.
Well, That's another thing, though, is just being thankful that we had each other, because we both played big roles, and it took all hands on deck from just our immediate family, our extended family, the grandparents and stuff, especially. Obviously,
For sure.
it's not an easy thing.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, too, sometimes moms assume dads aren't really feeling as much as they are. But I don't think that's true. I think just the feelings and the analysis is different than what it is for us, which kind of blends it all together. Like, then I feel like all bases are covered between both partners, for sure. I think one of the hardest parts, too, of this journey is really for parents that are making these medical decisions for their child to feel certain in the decisions that they're making with the team that they're picking, especially when there's multiple options out there or there's a high level of uncertainty. What was the hardest part, do you think, deciding on surgery?
I think that for me, it wasn't really I think once we found the Hypospadias clinic in Texas, I think we knew pretty quickly, like, that's where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was really hard deciding on surgery, other than the fact of, like, we were willingly choosing 3 surgeries over one, and we were choosing to travel 3 times rather than stay local and have one singular surgery. It was like we were making the harder decision, but it wasn't that hard of a decision, because we just believed in our decision so much.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that answers the question. I don't think it was that hard deciding on the surgery once we
Yeah, I don't.
had the plan in place.
Yeah, I agree. I had been in Facebook groups that were like very black and white. They were pro surgery and then anti surgery. And being in the holistic space and definitely erring on the side of less with mainstream medicine, it was hard to even think about like leaning towards surgery for me for a while, because I just also, to an extent, it's like, well, if this is how God made him, like maybe he's supposed to stay that way. But breaking it down and thinking about the long-term outcomes, his future, from like the aspect of like how he would mentally handle it, but also the aspect of like growing up and having the option to, reproduce and have as quote unquote as a normal life as possible. I left more of the space of like not doing anything alone pretty quickly, which to me even sounds weird because like that's how I guess what I'm trying to say is I wanted to be in the space of like where we weren't going to do anything and we were just going to like see what happened. But being the parent and feeling and talking about our options and making the best decision for him and his future, I felt like we had to do the surgeries. I think the reason for that too is like parents often ask us like how we knew what to do. But the truth is that I don't know if we ever really felt 100% certain. I know for me, like I said, I wanted to pick nothing, but I knew we had to pick the surgical route. So there's always that lingering a little bit amount of uncertainty, and that's okay. I just want to let everyone know that's okay to feel that way. If there's a dad listening right now whose child is facing surgeries or a diagnosis, what would you want them to know?
I think the thing that kept me sane was really, like I said, just taking it one step at a time. Mm-hmm. Normally, I'm a planner and I like to know exactly how something's going to go every step of the way. But when something's is out of your control as a surgery on your child, when you're not a surgeon and you're not going to be doing it, mm-hmm. You kind of have to let go of control, and then you just have to take everything head on, one step at a time, because you can drive yourself nuts, mm-hmm. anticipating all the things that could happen and might happen and won't happen. Yeah. And how is the third surgery going to go when I'm on the first surgery, and all of that. And really you just have to slow down and wait.
Being very present inside that moment.
Yeah.
In those times.
And just handle it as it comes, because I mean, for us too, I did feel like, and especially after doing this podcast and talking to so many families that, man, we had an extreme situation, but it really wasn't, it
Sure.
wasn't extreme at the same time. Like
Yeah.
what we dealt with, I'm so thankful in hindsight that it was so minor in the scheme of life.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't allow your head to run too crazy and talk you into something that it's not.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I can definitely understand that. And again, just like day by day, if we are talking to other families that are going through a similar path, like with hypospadias or something similar, and you do need a surgery and there's a recovery process, like day by day, just try to be present in the moment instead of future pacing yourself, because you're going to get there. The body is resilient. It's made to heal, especially when you give it a good environment to heal in. And these, if you're picking the right doctors and things like that, like you have those tools and those recommendations, and just day by day is all that you can do, because you will get to the other side.
And also dig in and do the research and learn about what's going on. And I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people might think, I'm not a doctor, I need to just trust my doctor and let it happen, when you can actually understand a lot more than you realize, especially when your child is at stake.
Yeah.
And so just jump in and research it. Make sure you feel confident in what the doctor's saying, and search and see if there are any other ways to handle certain situations. I mean, with the extreme differences between surgical procedures for the same condition that we've had, been told about, they were extremely different. But just from like a simple common sense standpoint, the route that we ended up going seemed to logically make sense more than the original, option that the first doctor gave us. I was just like, I just don't see how that would work. And then I read about that. I don't know what the name of that procedure was, but I read about it and I read about the failures, and I'm like, I thought it would fail because of the reason that it does commonly fail.
Yeah.
So why would I do that and hope that he's one of the few that doesn't have it fail?
Well,
Like,
right.
It was just it was more obvious than I really thought it was going to be.
Well, I think that you feel that way because you think like, I'm not a doctor, like I'm not trained inside this space. So like, how could my logistical brain, like thinking about this, like from a common sense standpoint, how come this would make sense on why it would fail, but they're doing it this way? And I think that those are important things to listen to, no matter what the condition is in the procedure. Like if your brain has alarms going off, because even like from a lay standpoint, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. It's either either they didn't properly communicate it to you, so definitely get another opinion so someone can properly communicate it to you, and or it's just not the right fit, and there's different options out there, and you're literally like, your whole being is telling you like, go somewhere else. This is not right.
Well, and I've seen
or not right for you.
Right. And for just walking this path, we've seen and heard too many stories where people just go with the first surgeon that gives them the recommendation on what the treatment's going to be, which is just wild to me, because if you're going to get a new alternator in your car, you might get multiple quotes. If you're going to get an HVAC system in your house, you'll get multiple quotes. But I think the marketing of America specifically, I don't know about other countries, but it's like, trust your doctor. How much should we hear that, especially through the COVID times? Trust your doctor. Well, that's good. They're educated. They've done a lot of work to be where they are, but you should also check with other doctors.
You should also trust yourself.
And but just take all of the information you can get. Don't just, I would not just trust one mechanic. If they gave me some crazy diagnosis, I would go get another quote, and I would go get another diagnosis and make sure what we're doing. So with your child or with yourself or with anything, like, unless it's dire and something you're in the ER and some surgery has to happen immediately.
Yeah.
Slow down. Make sure that you feel confident in what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And if you missed it, you can also go back and reference our episode with Catherine, because we talked about the BRAIN acronym, which are different things to ask and to buy yourself time as well if you need it, and making a decision. So that is a really good episode to jump back to if you haven't seen it already. I also definitely want to ask you, do you feel like there's something that, as a dad or as the father, you would want moms to know as you're going through an experience like this?
I think that we processed every step of the way differently. And I think that not necessarily even just for moms to know, I think that both partners need to know that they're going to handle things different. Um, I might not have been as emotional and had the tears or had the same stress showing that you did in the same way you did, but there were still, headaches and stress and things going on that, it just doesn't come out the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But my brain was working just as hard. I'm sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit in different ways,
Yeah.
trying to analyze this from every different angle to make sure that we were just making all the right decisions. I mean, nothing's more important than your child and your family. And
Yeah. I mean, I think
you just had to.
Teamwork matters in this regard. And like by teamwork too, I just mean like open communication, because now obviously hindsight's always 2020. Like looking back, I did sometimes feel a little bit more like I'm carrying all this emotional load and I have all these like emotions and I'm sad and I'm mad and exhausted and worried, and I just wear that out on my sleeve versus you do not. And it wasn't until we sat down and had conversations around it that I understood you were still feeling those things. But even as your spouse that has known you for a long time, going through it, like looking at you, I would have never guessed that without actually having an open conversation about it. So it is good to communicate as spouses too.
Yeah, no, I think communication, I will always stand by that, is that we have a very strong relationship and I'm extraordinarily grateful for that. And we have great family around us, and all those things make a difference in the biggest way. And I can't imagine for single parents and people have it so much harder than us.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine going through something like that.
Yeah.
Literally alone.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's just, when you have family, utilize them.
Yeah.
They're there to help you. They love you.
And that's why we're building this community too, because there are a lot of people out there that do not have the resources or the support that we had. And it's essential. I mean, it's so important, even if it's just connecting with another individual that can hold space and talk to you or hold you through your tears or the questions or whatever it is, and help bring some balance or bring some awareness to like some other questions to ask. Like all of that's super important. So if you are lacking that, we totally understand and respect that. And that's why we're here. I was going to ask, like, what was the hardest part of this journey now that we're on the other side?
Outside of the initial unknown, because that sticks out in my head a lot, is just not knowing when were we going to get the full diagnosis and know everything we were dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and that our child was mentally okay and going to be physically okay, and there were no other ailments. That was the biggest thing. And then, like I said, surgery number 2 was it just seemed brutal. And the way that they took a hot dog and told me they were going to cut it basically in half and then leave it like that for 6 months
Mm-hmm.
was something I was getting queasy about. Like I said, it turned out to not be as bad as I predicted it, and it was not as extreme as the hot dog made it look.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was nice that they gave a visual, but it was
extreme. It was just brutal. But the
never
reality
eat a hot dog again.
Is a 6 month, well, he would have been 1 year old, is not the size of a hot dog. And
yeah,
a small cut up the bottom is one thing versus a hot dog split in half. It just paints a completely different visual.
Yeah.
Which was just brutal. And I was dreading that surgery a lot. And then the upside was I was looking forward to the last surgery to an extent. Obviously there was still fear.
Yeah.
But that's when everything was coming together, and we
Yeah.
were moving on, and we were going to be on the other side of things. And
there is a sense of relief if you have, if you're listening and your child has hypospadias and has a 3-stage repair, like there is a sense of relief going into that third one, because you're like, oh my gosh, we made it to the end. Just like anything else, you have more like understanding as you get further and further into it. So you had a better understanding of like what post-op was going to be like, and you could really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it is, it is, for lack of better terms, yeah, definitely like a bit more like, okay, we can do this. Like we made it there. We're at the final
Been
stretch.
through two surgeries already. We know what the healing process is like. And I also didn't think the third one was going to be as bad of a healing process as the second one because there wasn't the graft that was new and all of that.
But there was still the early catheter removal because it was coming out and we didn't quite realize, which is, again, so important to just talk about because I did not even know that was a thing. And then I felt like a horrible mom because he needed it in for 14 days and I think it was in for 5. And I'm freaking out, calling the clinic thinking we're going to have to immediately jump on a flight and fly to Texas and have another catheter put in so he can fully heal. But he was fine, which was really great. But obviously that was definitely, I'll say, icing on top of the cake of this journey. We were finally at the end and in that last phase of healing. And that was like,
that goes back to the take it as it comes because
sure.
You can go down the path of we're going to have to fly out there. We're going to have to do this emergency type of thing. And I honestly do remember thinking, well, let's just wait and see what they say, because I think that there was something in either their video or something that said, if it comes out earlier, it is okay. This happens from time to time, that I must have seen or remembered. And I just had faith that it was going to end up being okay at that point. I was not as stressed out about that as you were, except for his uncomfort. I was worried about him being uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And now that we are on the other side of it, I mean, I'm not going to lie, there's still things in the back of my mind that I constantly think about, like his future and just making sure that as he ages, like everything grows the way that's supposed to and that there's not a lot of scar tissue and all of that. But again, like we just take it day by day and we're just as prepared as we can be. And if something pops up, we're going to do the same things that we did the first time with like analyzing and using our resources and interviewing and deciding on what's the right path for him. So I think too, like just kind of going through this, it makes, hopefully it makes your relationship stronger. Hopefully it doesn't break it down. I could see it going both ways, but for us, it definitely brought us more together and made us a better team.
I agree.
Which I'm appreciative of. One thing I've realized over time is that medical journeys don't just reshape children's lives, they reshape families. And sometimes the strongest thing parents can do is learn how to understand each other through it. Because moms and dads may carry this experience differently, but they are walking the same road. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Born for This Stories. If you're a parent navigating a medical diagnosis, a surgery decision, or a path that you never expected to be on, we hope this conversation helped you feel a little less alone. And if you're a mom listening to this episode, maybe it helps you see your partner's experience in a new light. And if you're a dad listening, just know this. Your role in this journey matters more than you probably realize. Your steadiness, your support, and the quiet ways you show up for your family. They matter. If this episode resonated with you, share it with another parent who might need it. And as always, you were born for this.